The Visual Resources Review Board meeting for the town of Farragut. This is the August 2019 meeting. So the first item on our agenda is going to actually insert an item above the first item because I want to welcome two members to our board tonight that are new. First of all, our student representative, Miss Lillian Scott. Welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Your first meeting, and also Alderman Ron Pinchot. Welcome to the board as well.
Thank you.
Glad to have you both. All right, so moving on then, the first item is the approval of the minutes from the July 23rd, 2019 meeting. Is there any discussion regarding those minutes as presented? Okay. If we don't have any discussion as presented, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I was not here.
Any opposed? And one abstention. All right, so the next item that we need to do is elect officers for this fiscal year. We have 3 positions. Unless something's changed I'm not aware of, we're going to elect the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. So typically we have a nomination for each of those. We'll take them in order and do them one at a time. So we'll start with the chair, if there's any discussion or nominations on chair for this fiscal year.
I nominate Marty. He's done such a good job. I think we should keep him.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate that.
I second.
Nomination in a second. I'll accept.
third?
You third it?
Brittany Forrest.
All right, well, all in favor of that nomination, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the next position would be the vice chair of the committee. Do we have discussion and nominations on the vice chair? Or somebody that wants to do it?
I'll nominate Brittany. She did a great job this past year.
Okay, a nomination for Brittany. I'll second that nomination.
I'll third it.
All right. All in favor of Brittany, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So our last item is secretary, or last officer is secretary, which kind of works out to be more in name only than anything else. But do we have a nomination for secretary?
I nominate Jenny.
Nomination, Jean. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of Jeannie for secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So we'll move down now to the ground mounted sign applications for this time. We have the first one on the agenda, and the only one on the agenda is the Villages Senior Living Community at 230 Villages Commons Boulevard, just off Kingston Pike and located kind of behind the Farragut Press. So with that, Bart?
This is a ground-mounted entrance sign for the Villages Senior Living Community. I think you're all probably familiar with where it is. It's there across from Peterson Road and then running up the hill there. It's being developed in several phases. They've recently acquired some property and are in the process of re-subdividing it and replatting it so that this sign, which is going to be located down there along the frontage of Kingston Pike, will be an on-premise sign. So that's one of the conditions that we had for any approval, is that plat be finalized and recorded. It'll be a approximately 60 square foot sign in area. It meets the 20-foot setbacks for that size sign. It's going to be about 6 feet high, which of course also complies with your standards. Not counting the numbers on the top. The plans have changed a bit since the packet went out, and actually since the PowerPoint was put together. We've had some revisions. So the plan sheet that's on your screens there and on the main screen, that's the new configuration. The only thing missing on that was the overall height, which they've turned in a revised sheet that I have a paper copy of, but I wasn't able to get into PowerPoint in time. that shows it being a 6-foot height there. Again, not counting the street address. You can see it's going to wrap a little bit there. It's going to be, a curved sign, but it's should be attractive there. I also printed out a color rendering there. There are a couple copies in front of you that, again, we got late this afternoon that just shows what that's going to look like. To give you some idea of what the sign, will appear like there on the corner. Here, you can see here the overall site plan for the site, and it's going to be located up there at the corner of Kingston Pike and right in this area, tucked up against the detention basin, which is in this area on the larger sheet or on the larger view. So that'll be the location of the sign, and again, it's shown as being 20 foot back from the property lines, which is what's required for a sign of that size on this particular type of development. There is also a landscaping plan that was also submitted that doesn't match what you have in your packets, but so you might want to look at the one on the screen or up on the projector. They've modified it to go along with the new design. The only issue that's still sort of outstanding on this is they want to use a type of pachysandra for some infill. Staff was a little concerned about that being potentially invasive. It's going to be in a bricked area, but we still, from a staff perspective, would prefer that it be replaced with something that wouldn't be potentially invasive, or if that particular species is not invasive, just some documentation that it's not. But apart from that, it complies with the landscaping standards for a sign like this. Again, you can see there that it is tucked up against the detention basin. A lot of the landscaping to the rear of the sign will actually be inside the drainage basin or the detention basin easement area. But the basin has to be landscaped anyway, so that we didn't see that as a problem from a staff perspective. And again, that coloring the color rendering will give you an idea what it'll look like when it's from the side view. And it will be externally lit with some spotlights.
Since I'm new, I've got a couple questions.
Go right ahead.
Looking at it from down on this, I'm assuming now, I hate to assume anything, but the sign is the 3 sections curved in the front. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it's as I understand it, it's not really going to be 3 sections. It's going to just be a wrap sign. Is that correct? But it is basically right here.
Right.
Right.
Okay, and all the arborvitae, everything's going to be behind it. Correct. There's not going to be anything in front.
Except for the
Yeah.
lighting.
Yeah, in the front's going to be some dwarf mango grass you can see there, and some other so this whole area is landscaped. It's just that rather than put shrubs in front, they're putting them in behind.
In the back of the sign and around.
One of the things I'll be bringing up from time to time on this committee, and I guess one of my concerns is the purpose of this committee is to maintain natural beauty and enhance the overall look, and I'm all for that. But after spending 35 years in commercial retail business, I've seen an awful lot of good-looking signs that have been covered up by vegetation, by trees, bushes, whatever. So that is going to be one of my concerns as we go forward, that we have plenty of beautiful plants and shrubbery, but make sure that at some point in time it doesn't impede.
We do that too. I mean,
Okay.
that's one of our.
We share your concern.
Absolutely, that's one of our biggest concerns because
Great.
we've actually changed a lot because of.
We've had a lot of discussions about that when certain shrubbery is in front of the sign versus maybe at the end of the sign or wherever it can be placed so that it doesn't cover the sign. But then you notice, and I've seen this too, that even though it's a slow-growing, low shrub,
It gets
after a
away.
few years, it does. It
Right.
it reaches a little height, and it covers the sign up, and it becomes a little too much.
If you look throughout our community, there's too many shopping centers, for example, Cole shopping centers, you're driving down the road, some of those trees have gotten very mature, you can't
Yes.
see storefronts, you can't see signs. Even our most recent building here on the corner of Campbell Station and Kingston Pike, where Starbucks is located, I've seen a couple trees planted that are going to be right in front of entrances and
So block the
signs.
view.
They're fine now, they're no problem, but if those trees become mature and get too big, then someone's paying an awful lot of money for a sign that's not going to be visible. So that's my only concern. I bring it up because I am new, and I want to make sure that going forward, we do everything to keep that sign as visible as possible. So I'm good with what I see.
The one item that you were talking about, the Japanese Pachysandra, did I say that right? Is that on our approved list? Plant material list?
It's not, and we did check it, and it doesn't, it didn't appear on the state's invasive species list that Mark checks, but, but he Googled a couple other things, and we were at least a little concerned about it. So, if we can get documentation that it's not invasive, that would be fine. But if it is, we'd like to have it replaced by something.
Right here.
Okay.
Apart from that, the landscaping plan is compliant, and this sign plan that is in the packet, with the understanding the overall height of the sign is 6 feet and is also compliant. So, in terms of staff's recommendation that went out with your packet, and item number 1 is sort of satisfied that they have put in plan sheets that have been revised and comply with the town standards. We do still need verification that the minor plat and the replat has been finalized, and there's going to probably be a need for some revisions to the detention basin, as I understand it, as part of that. That will also satisfy item number 3, because that plat will show any easements, and I don't believe there are any in the area the sign would conflict with, but again, we need that final plat to make sure of that. And then items 4 and 5 just deal with the Pachysandra, and then just a standard note about staff going out and field verifying the lighting and getting an as-built so that to document the setbacks.
So I have a question. With this being rounded, instead of the V that was in our packet,
Right.
is it facing straight out to Kingston Pike? And with that red light there, is it going to
I'm
even
looking.
be visible with the passing traffic right there?
Because you're talking about the round, because it's rounded.
Because it's rounded
Yeah,
now.
and that's
that
what I'm
sign is on the front face instead of on the V where it would kind of be facing
Because it's going to
both
be like
directions.
the VI and the LL and the A, and that's going to, that concerns me a little bit too.
I agree.
So why are we doing that?
Well, the V shape was designed so we had the 2 directions intentionally, but we came to understand the definition of parallel in the ordinance and our definition of parallel didn't match. So we couldn't do that. Because if you stood on Kingston Pike and looked at it, you would see both sides. You would see both sides of the V. So that then made the amount of signage on the V exceed the allowance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Straight back in
So-
order.
so now, to try to keep it fluid and make it so traffic speeding, they don't speed in Farragut though,
Sure.
but traffic going by, and because we're bringing people up Village Commons, that's why we're trying to make this thing a little more fluid, and spread the name kind of around at an arc. All of the letters you see are surface applied 3-dimensional letters into a brick base that's painted. So that's the big idea. And that way, coming from either direction, you're going to see part of the name. And going past it, you'll definitely see the whole name.
Okay.
It's that light, you'll see the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then will the numbers sit on top of the brick base?
Yes, this is a little quirky.
Are you going to do, yeah.
We're putting 230 on top of the brick base because the post office address is 230 Village Commons Boulevard, even though it's facing Kingston Pike, and it's nowhere near that number. But that's the 8-inch letter we needed to put on there. We did that intentionally to be different than the rest of it, to not confuse it.
I've got a question. If I am in a car traveling westbound, I come to the traffic light, and there are cars coming down the hill from your site and want to enter onto Kingston Pike, if they're lined up there, 2 or 3 cars, will it be blocking your sign?
No.
Is the sign going to be high enough, or what? I'm not sure I understand
Well,
that.
the 20 feet from the property line is about where the cars stack to. That's kind of the line across the median.
If they stop where they're supposed to stop.
If they stop where they're supposed to stop.
Wait a minute. Okay, that's important.
Right.
Because, I mean, you can have a great sign again, but if traffic
It's going to
is
block
blocking
it.
it, you can't see it.
Right.
So, but you're comfortable with that then?
And that's one reason we've kind of,
Built it up.
built it high.
Yeah.
We're
That was
wasting a
smart.
lot of brick to make the whole circle,
But I think that's smart, though, to
but
do what you're
it gives
doing.
it a flair.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's very attractive.
Yeah,
I
like
think it's
the
going to look
sign.
very nice, and it's very unique.
yeah.
Now, I do have a question for the board. They have a website at the bottom of their signage.
Oh, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, I don't know if we have any restrictions regarding that. I was just curious.
No, I mean,
We
you know, we just really just measure, you know, the area of the message and aren't particularly concerned with, you know, what the message says in
Yeah.
terms of regulating speech. So,
Got it.
yeah.
Well, we can't really regulate the content on the sign. We've had a couple of things come up recently in that. Of course, we had the phone number that was
Yeah.
on the insurance agent.
And then Jazz Pizza or something.
The concern, that I always have though is I don't know what size lettering that is down there. It looks pretty small in this rendering.
It is.
Will it even be visible? Will it
Are you-
even work for you?
Yeah,
at
I'm
the
counting
sizes?
on that red light and somebody looking over there to be able to read the
So
website
that's real
on there.
important to you, to
Yeah.
keep that on there.
Right.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's no connection. We don't want phone numbers.
Right.
So,
Well, the reason you want it is because it's not just the villages or the .com, it's the Farragut part. That's why I see it.
I mean, in terms of wayfinding, the villages is the main message so that they know that,
Right.
you know, that's where
Right.
you turn to get to the, you know, that development. That, you know, the rest of it is some additional advertising, I
And that
guess.
part you can see very well.
Yeah.
In regards to
Right.
the invasive material or potential invasive material he's talking about, do you have issue with
brought
that?
that up with the landscape architect, and I get a different story on it. So they are sure it is not invasive, what they expect. Now, there's types of Pachysandra, I have a hard time even pronouncing that.
Right.
But apparently that may be somewhere. What they've spec'd, they say is not.
And if
and
we
I
can get
think-
documentation from them,
Yeah, I
that-
think Bart's
that'll be
right.
fine.
Let's get them to put that on paper for us.
Okay, all right.
Last question I have is about the plat, and they're trying to replat it to
Yeah.
put it together. Is the signage size based on that being approved, or is that before
It's
the
not so
approved
much,
plat changing?
yeah, it's not so much the size of the sign, it's that we don't allow off-premise signs. So when that development was initially laid out, those lots there along the Boulevard Street were actually separate tracks from, where the Village's development is. And so they weren't able to have a sign down on Kingston Pike. So I guess over the past several months, they've been negotiating with the previous owner of that, and they've acquired that side of the boulevard, and they're replatting it to add it in to the overall development, so that then this sign becomes an on-premise sign. So that's what that platting is related to essentially make this a permissible on-premise sign as opposed to an illegal or off-site sign.
And then another question for you, that whole development is the Villages, right? So I
Correct.
know there were kind of 3 levels of care within that, but it's all known as the Villages, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And then eventually they'll have another entrance over on the,
Yeah, which, by the way, is why we put an S on village.
Yeah.
I figured that that's what.
I was just curious if it
Yeah.
would be different signage for each of the parts of it.
There will
and
be
if you-
internal names that are
But
slightly
it's all
different.
under that umbrella.
Right. There will be different neighborhoods is what we'll call them.
Will there be a skilled care there?
No, ma'am.
So what are the 3 levels?
Memory care,
Okay,
independent apartments and assisted living,
okay.
and then the villas.
Any further discussion on the village's application? Okay, if no further discussion, do we have a motion? Well,
Move to
Go ahead.
accept.
to accept it,
Application is presented.
we have some subject twos at the
Subject, yeah.
bottom that will need to
Okay.
be included with any motion, numbers 2 through 5.
And I guess it's the subject twos have to be a part of it, part of the approval process. Okay.
Right. All right, so,
Is that worded the way properly? I'm not sure what you were looking for there.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, subject, well, yeah, subject to the items that are presented in our packet.
There were no changes to the subject twos.
well,
Yeah.
number 1's no longer
No
applicable, so
longer.
it's just,
So
it's
it's
just
items
2 through 5.
2 through 5, yeah.
With the understanding that they wouldn't have to substitute the Pachysandra if we get,
Well, for that, so that number 4 would just be written approval that it's,
well, if they can document that, that particular cultivar is
Basic.
not invasive around here, then that's fine. If not, then just please substitute it out, so.
All right, so we have a motion then for approval, subject to the items 2 through 5, with item 4 being the Japanese Pachysandra being allowed once it's proven in writing that it's not invasive. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much.
Marty, I guess I should say, I'm Gary Keckley. I'm the developer. I know in your protocol, you should have this person introduce themselves first.
We just went straight on in,
we
didn't
were
we?
just like, thank
Approved you
you.
anyway. We're saving you a place.
All right, well, the only other item on the agenda for tonight would be a sign ordinance committee update from the ongoing,
Thank you.
from the ongoing updates that we're looking toward for the sign ordinances.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick update on this. We had our second meeting with the committee. Alderman Pinchot's actually on that committee along with Ms. Freeman. And the second meeting was on August 7th. Went over, several concepts, got into a little more depth on the whole Reed issue, the Supreme Court issue with sort of content neutral based sign regulations, the differences between commercial speech and non-commercial speech, and the impact of that within Reed. Started to look at some parts of the regulations. We had asked the committee members at the first meeting to, sort of look around town and also look around elsewhere in the larger area, and other parts of Knoxville or other surrounding jurisdictions, and try to look at what they like in terms of signs, what they don't like in terms of signs, what some of their concerns are, and issues they see going forward in this. So we got some good feedback on that. And then our third meeting is tomorrow at 5 o'clock here in the back of the boardroom. So if anyone's just a glutton for punishment and wants to come and watch some of that, you're all welcome.
time?
5 p.m. We're going to be looking a little, starting to look at the existing regulations now, section by section, and try to come up with some alternate language where possible that will be more READ compliant, and dealing with some issues. So the first one we're going to try to tackle is like freestanding non-residential developments. So so commercial developments and freestanding buildings as opposed to strip centers and multi-tenant type developments. So the committee will be looking at that and some draft language for that and try to get some input. So if anyone's interested in coming and observing, that meeting, it's open to the public, the press is there, that sort of thing. So, but that's where that committee stands now. We'll probably be meeting every 3 or 4 weeks for the foreseeable future to try to work through the code and try to deal with some of these issues.
Did you say that as far as the signage, looking at the signs, they brought back what they liked and did not like?
A couple people took some pictures and had them on their phones. Some people just had made some notes of things that they were concerned about in terms of
Anything we need to know?
in terms of congestion or there was some discussion
Plants.
about landscaping being in the way and those sort of issues and even the whole problem of
Lighting?
well, not so much lighting wasn't brought up, but just issues of if we start changing sign heights or allowing different types of signs like pole signs, then they could then those things could start blocking
Exactly.
the visibility of all signs on adjoining buildings and that sort of thing. So just people sort of trying to think comprehensively about, okay, if we change this, what does it mean? If we change that, what does it mean? So it was some good discussion.
I think it's fascinating when you're out of Farragut, when you're going Kingston Pike, and exactly because all the sites are they're so different.
I think the big concern from the steering committee is being content neutral.
Yes.
For example, whether it be signs or flags even, if you can fly 2 or 3 different flags, what's to keep you from putting up some flag that, is not desirable?
Right.
And you just let your imagination go crazy.
Had to turn down one, a hotel, but was because of certain flags
Right.
and stuff.
And then the same thing with wording. If you can't, if it's content neutral and the town can't say what type of language or cannot be put on there, that could open up a can of worms. So how do you handle that?
Well, and that's the kind of the point I was making. I know what they're doing. Obviously, they're advertising, right?
Right.
On their signage, which signage is advertising, but they are taking it to that next step. And if we can't control that next
That worries
step,
me too.
what's to stop everybody from putting a website or a phone number that we don't like on signage? So I was just posing that question.
Yeah.
And see, that worries me because I don't know if you were on here when we had to do that. Was it? I thought it was Jets or one of them we had, and we denied it. I mean, they had.
That was some time back.
It was not. Yeah.
Well,
were
it
you
was the
on there?
music, or you remember
Well,
we had
no,
the
yes,
music
the music,
thing?
but this was before the
Yeah,
music,
okay.
and this was like around Jet Pizza, or I think it was. Are we on? Are we on?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
You've
still.
not adjourned yet.
Well, anyway, so the phone number was there, and it was like, wait a minute, what's to stop them? Because that's free
Yeah.
advertising. So that is
Well,
an issue that you need
signs
to.
are used for wayfinding, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
when you get into the phone numbers and you get into
That bothers
websites,
me.
that is more advertising. That is
That's
more.
I mean, that's something I
That's
can look at.
Totally
I wasn't aware of anything in the code about that.
Well, we
you
had
know,
to change. We definitely. it's
Maybe that's
been
something
years
I
ago.
missed
You
in
were
reviewing
on
it.
there,
If
weren't you?
it's a problem, I'll contact the owner. But at the same time, if
We want to
it-
be.
if we're
fair.
not sort of trying to regulate message, but just time, place, and manner,
Right.
then
You're right. Then
you know,
we had
those
to
things
switch
do
it to
open
the
up.
music thing because of.
Right.
But
No.
if you're a pizza delivery, if you're a pizza place and you deliver,
But
it
this
might
was
be
before
important to
that.
have
It
your
was the
phone
Jet
number on
Pizza
there.
Might
area.
be.
Remember, and they
But now
wanted to
in
put the phone
yeah,
number
in
right
terms of
underneath.
it does consume their available space.
Okay.
You
It
know,
was-
so
it
I
was a
mean,
big deal.
you know, they were trying to fit all that in 60 square feet, so.
Yeah.
So, you know, at some point, people are only going to put so much of that stuff in because it's going to detract from the rest of their signage.
Right.
But, you know, but that is an issue in,
But if there were a way to define it in the upcoming
We
sign
need to
ordinance
address
changes
it.
to
Yeah.
wayfinding language rather than advertising language, I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
But if you were, that would
That's
make
going
it
to be a
clearer.
problem if we don't address, I mean, it's probably, if one starts it, then it's going to be a flood
Yeah.
of
Well,
others that's going to
we
want to
knew
do.
when we had the music deal, I'm the one that argued about the phone number anyway. I thought that's very out of character for signage.
I did
Okay?
too.
And I know they were grandfathered in, but that would be my concern, that big phone numbers start going up on signage.
Well,
and
this
that's,
was
you
years
know.
ago, and I don't know how long, but this was a big issue for us. I don't even know who was on the board. I know the two of us. Brittany says she doesn't remember it. But they did not get to do that. They wanted the phone number on their ground-mounted sign. And we were like, but then the Supreme Court and all this.
Things have changed since
Things
then.
have changed, but there still has to be a balance. I mean, like you said, what is signage and what is free advertising? You know, if they.
But
it was a
in
big
my
issue.
mind, that's not advertising. If you're a pizza that delivers, why not? What's wrong with having your phone number on there? This village, you know, the reason to have the website on there is,
This
you know, if you're not
advertising.
familiar with it, then you might want to look at the website to see what 3 levels they do offer.
And
Or
you're
just,
gonna have
it's
all-
like
and
a
then-
hotel. Maybe you just want to see what the amenities are there
Yeah.
or what the rooms are like.
What
so.
about the hotels? They don't have, you're right. in
Well, the
one way.
hotels, that's true. They don't have.
They don't have that on their
websites.
signs. We
That's
don't allow, I mean,
well, I mean, I don't know whether, you know, again, they may just choose not to put that on their signage.
A lot of them don't need to.
I mean, I'll look at,
Actually
yeah.
recognize.
Randy, I think you're right. It's
And
gonna-
again, I mean, and I think we even talked about this and when we first brought this up, which I think it'll be interesting if it comes up in the committee, is differentiating the type of commercial business. So I know in the current ordinance, you know, we differentiate, like, if it's a, you know, church sign versus, because we have those in the town, versus a, you know, a business sign now, and going for, I mean, that's a different message.
Yeah.
So it's, how do you, you know.
Well, some of that becomes problematic in the code as we move forward on how we're going to revise it, is that, you know, that sort of, you know, favored speech and saying is what does become problematic in terms of regulating the signage. But I'll double check the ordinance about the phone numbers and the website thing,
I think this
because,
is
you
gonna
know,
be
because
a
if I
big
made an
issue.
error in checking that and it's a problem, I'll flag it and I'll get in touch with the owner. But beyond that, I think it's, you know, I'm not sure what we do about that going forward, but it's something I'll bring up to Mark for the committee to talk
That's
about.
going to be, I'm afraid, yeah, we need to get a handle on that as soon as we can, because I'm afraid it's going to be an issue down the.
Well, that's all, Bart? All right. That's always the last second. All right, well, with that, we will end this month's meeting.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.